Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. A defiant and tone-deaf president promises executive amnesty by Christmas. After the election, the dollar hits a new 7-year high against the yen, while Russia considers banning circulation of the greenback. Meanwhile, the Dow continues to set records. The one thing I don't understand is the stock market. How do they continue to go past 17,000, maybe 18,000, based on the reality of what's going on in the world?
I have a very simple explanation. There is so much money flowing into the United States. A lot of it is going into buildings. It's going into businesses. It's certainly going into the stock market in a very big way. There's more money going into the United States than it's going into the rest of the world today.
And we have record tax receipts.
Well, it doesn't make any difference. The point is, we look at America critically like we do our own family. We find fault, as we should. But when you go to other countries and they see how they're falling off, and the fact that the United States has the greatest natural resources of every country in the world, we have literally millions of independent businesses in this country. We have a technology that is unmatched by anybody in the world. We're a God-blessed country in a way that no country ever has been in the history of mankind.
And it's interesting that you said that we're a God-blessed country because we made a pact with God 200 and some odd years ago.
Yes, and we became a country that allowed people from all over the world to come and find sanctuary that they did. Do you know that when in 1983, when this country really got started, when we defeated the British, the French helped us, of course, but when we got going, we had less than 3 million people.
You said 1983.
Did I say 19?
Yeah. You want to go back a couple centuries.
It's 1 century, more or less. 1783. Today, we have 320 million people. By the middle of this century, we will be well over 400 million in this country. We are right now the third largest population after China and India in the whole world.
Can we sustain a population of that size?
We've just begun. Yes, we can, because I think we've mentioned it on a previous show. Our natural resources have doubled the value of this country. Number one in oil, number one in natural gas, number one in propane and butane and other supplemental resources like that. Even coal, which, coal has been declared dead many times, but coal is still used to take iron ore and make it into steel. It may not be used as much as before. And you've got countries that are underdeveloped and developing that are going to be developed countries 25, 30 years from now. Africa now has well over 1 billion people. 20 years ago, they didn't have 40% of that. And there are some bad news out of Africa with Ebola and the Boko Haram, that Islamic group that's killing off Christians. But by and large, Africa has got a great future. So there's a lot of things happening throughout the world, but there's only one country in the world that's got it all, and that's the United States of America. People say to me, my God, you're overly optimistic. No, I'm not. I'm overly realistic. You show me one thing that America doesn't have. We still have
leadership.
Well, yes, but even with the intangibility of a poor leadership, I frankly am very optimistic for the simple reason I was afraid that there might be a coup d'etat to keep Obama in power. Well, that's because of my influence as a kid in Germany to see when a total madman and an idiot like Hitler got up there. And I never compared Obama to Hitler, but I saw what was happening was very similar, that people didn't care and people were dissuaded from getting involved. Well,
and the tactics,
even the
propaganda.
Yeah, all that reminded me, and that's what scared me. But it didn't happen. And I think the greatest thing about this election, this midterm election, was that was a clean, relatively pure election. Otherwise, the Republicans who were on the outs looking in could not have won the way they did.
Now, Russia is considering banning the dollar from circulating. Does that mean anything, or is that just theater?
That's just a lot of talk. I think Putin is very angry about the sanctions against Russia because Russia's involvement in a small part of Ukraine. They took over the Crimea like Hitler took over the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia. That's sort of been forgotten about. And now we got the eastern Ukraine, which is primarily used to be Russian, and we're coming down on them. And of course, anytime Israel even builds one house in East Jerusalem, we think they've committed the greatest sin since the beginning of mankind. And he's stupid, Obama in this case, because most of the American people love Israel. And Christians do a better job of supporting Israel than a lot of Jews do.
Yep.
I mean, I know the Christian evangelists. I have lectured at Liberty University in Virginia. These are really good people. They're really down to earth, and they'll do anything to keep Israel alive and going. And you'd think he'd be smart enough to know that. Instead, he tries to humiliate the best prime minister Israel ever had, in Bibi Netanyahu.
And he's at the right place at the right time in history now.
Thank God for that.
We also know that the dollar went to a 7-year high versus the yen right after the elections. People have been worried about the sanctity of the dollar.
Not lately. That goes right back to what I was telling you about. Because people now see, my God, they've got natural resources. They've got technology. They've got millions of small businesses. Nobody else has that. Let's put our money there. How do you think, would you invest in the American debt? Of course not. The 10-year note, which is the most important one on the yield curve because it's used for mortgages, it's used for long-term loans and so on, it's running about 2.3%. It's got one of the lowest interest rates of any country in the world, and which means it's also got the highest price. The only country that was a little lower than that was Germany. Now Germany's having trouble. So the United States is standing out like a beacon of light.
Interesting segue that you bring up Germany, because I was going there next. A German bank, and you asked me earlier, I couldn't tell you who it was, is starting to charge customers what they call negative interest.
Yes,
to put money into their banks. Are we going to start seeing that happening more and more around here?
Well, I don't think so, because right now the Federal Reserve is paying banks. They have to have a certain amount of capital in order to be viable, in order to get to be sanctified by the Federal Reserve.
Stress tests and whatnot.
Well, yeah, but so the banks have more money than they need. So the Federal Reserve is, I believe they're paying a quarter of a cent or some very small amount, but when you talk about billions of dollars, it adds up.
Right.
They're paying them for money that they have over what they must have according to Federal Reserve standards. And they're doing that because they don't want to see another near crash as happened back in 2008. Yeah.
The president has declared he's going to pass executive amnesty by Christmas, and I believe him. You talk about the work environment, the employment situation. If we take 11, 12, 20 million, whatever the number is, and automatically give them maybe not citizenship, but green cards to go out and legally look for work, what does that do to the economy in terms of employment?
Well, it dilutes the opportunities of people because, first of all, it's illegal to do that. But anything that Obama wants to do,
it's illegal to ship guns to Mexican drug gangs too.
You're right.
And did you notice that the Department of Justice dumped 46,000 pages of Fast and Furious documents on the election
eve? Well, they can
eve?
do whatever they want. The IRS, that was only by accident that was found out. There was supposed to be some local yokel in Cincinnati. No, it was done by this lady by the name of Lerner, who was in charge and was told what to do by the president.
Gene Shaheen had a lot to do with that too. But let's talk about the amnesty here. That concerns me in terms of employment for American workers. We've got 90 million Americans out of work right now.
Yeah, but actually, those people are working now anyway. They're working behind the scenes. I know, and I'm not culpable, but I know certain companies down in Houston, Texas, who are employing these people, and they're employing them for sub wages because they know, first of all, these people don't want to be discovered, and so they get paid along on the side. That's happening all over the place.
Oh, absolutely. And 90% of the money goes back to Mexico. That's their number one import is U.S. dollars.
Oh, there's no question about it. And actually, the irony of it is, other than those children that came up through Salvador and Guatemala and
Honduras,
Nicaragua and so on, and spread, nobody knows. You know, it's funny, those things become big cost celebs, and then a week later you forget about them. It happened. Those kids are now living with people throughout the United States. You know, I don't want to be thought of as being, you know,
xenophobic,
insensitive in this thing. But the point is, these things are being done so often now that nobody seems to care. This is what worried me. I thought the American public was becoming so immunized,
lethargic,
sort of desperate. The fact that what's the point? I mean, there's nothing we can do about it. Let's just go along with it and let's mind our own business. This is why that to me came out in the midterm election, that there is an American people that is willing to do something for the future of this country. I don't know if they did it necessarily for that reason, but that is what the message was that came out of the midterms.
I think the message was stop. Just stop all of this nonsense.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, is that is the very fact that we were able to do it, that people had the guts and the saying, listen, this time we're not going to just stand by, we're going to vote for the Republican because the Republican is not a Democrat, and the Democrats were totally identified with Barack Obama.
We only have about a minute, 30 seconds left. How much do the pollsters have egg on their face now? Because the polls have been wrong in almost the last 3 or 4 elections. They've been completely wrong. They were wrong again this time. They had Kay Hagan up. They had North Carolina going back to the Democrats. They had Georgia wrong. They had a lot of states and a lot of races wrong.
I don't put too much value on the polls in the sense. I think Sabato, the guy in
Larry Sabato.
Yeah, Sabato. Yeah, I think he's a very good man. I think they showed a trend, but they didn't show the intensity of this trend.
I mean, Gillespie was down by 10 last week, and all of a sudden now it's a runoff.
I think to a certain extent you're right, but I think there was a surge, very definitely a surge in the last week. That just the other way around, just like Obama had a surge in 2012. He had a surge, and you had a guy running the Republican Party who didn't know what he was doing. You know, it's interesting. This
Priebus.
Yeah, Priebus. I read, bean counter and so on. This guy really put together one hell of a campaign.
Yeah, and behind the scenes, what they did to prep these guys so they didn't have the Sharon Angle moment was pretty good too. We need to take a quick break. Our American Global Outlook and History segments are coming up. If you'd like to email us with comments or catch a segment you missed, just go to our website, theworldreport.org, and remember to like us and recommend us. We're being watched all over the world, 70 countries and growing. Our quote of the day: politicians and diapers need to be changed frequently and for the same reason. We'll be right back.